Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Hurd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is really a question for all four, and maybe we could start with Dr. Holtz-Eakin. This morning we heard from the chairman and the vice chairman of the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission, and one of the statements that was made in the majority report that I found interesting was that government housing policy did not play any significant factor, was not a significant factor in the crisis that we're now going over with a fine-tooth comb and trying to assess and trying to find ways to make sure that we prevent this in the future. I was wondering, in light of the fact that I think certainly my constituents would believe that that irresponsible lending led to the subprime mortgage crisis, it seems to me that government housing policy may actually have a lot to do with where we are and how we got here. I was wondering if each of you could maybe speak on that briefly and maybe offer the top, the top government policy that you think that we need to examine, change, and shoot for in order to address this.
I will try to be brief, having issued a dissenting a report from the majority. I will not relitigate all of the things I think they got wrong, but I would point out that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac may not have caused the financial crisis, but they are the poster child for many of the phenomenon that we highlighted in our dissent. They were key in the securitization chain, which during the panic did not serve us well. Its opacity contributed to what was a plain financial panic. They are the poster children for excess leverage, very little capital backing, implicit backing only by the taxpayer. They were the biggest phenomenon of too big to fail, and the quandary that policymakers were faced with in September of 2008 about which institutions to aid and not to aid, and they're the most expensive rescue. So I think that the policy that I think it is absolutely imperative to re-examine is those housing subsidies which are off the federal budget, which are implicit in their nature, which in the end become most dramatic when things fall apart. And they are the best example of that, and certainly worth reconsidering.
Thank you.
I would say that my view of the crisis as an investor was and is being addressed by the legislature now, which is the amount of leverage that was embedded in the balance sheets of the GSEs. As they were reporting to the twin masters of Congress and to the capital markets, the allocation and the misallocation of pricing in terms of allowing their balance sheets to grow to trillion-dollar-plus balance sheets forced other lenders to do things that were creative and modify loans and loan terms and make reps and warranties that were incorrect. I think that it's wise to downsize those portfolios. I don't think that the government should be in the portfolio business. People like me do that for a living. We live with the consequences of that day to day in terms of the scrutiny of not only regulators, but the shareholders and the investors who have to allocate capital to do that. So I think that if I had to point towards one critical moment during the past 25 years of looking at the markets, I think it's once those balance sheets began to balloon to levels of unsustainable growth, that's when lending practices were forced into different players to do different things. And I commend the Congress for, and the administration for looking to downsize those. My one recommendation as an investor would be to remove the uncertainty, would be to not let that take a long time, because that inventory overhang is just as serious in the securities market as it is in the actual allocation of houses that we have in inventory around the nation. Those securities need to be cleared. We have to find clearing prices for them. The capital markets are ready to do that. We prove that every day, and we raise money against that every day. And the quicker that uncertainty is out, at that time, we will know the true price of what that premium is worth.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's fair to say that the early part of this crisis was led by risk layering on loans that fell largely outside of the GSEs, Alt-A and subprime. However, they participated in some of that as well. And my recommendation on how to think about government involvement in all of this is had we been able to detect things earlier, system-wide, on performance of loans, in addition to the front end of the loans, in linking the two, makes some sense for the regulatory review of systemic risk. So that would be my other observation.
Thank you.
Well, much of what I would say has already said by Mr. Farrell and Ms. Schwartz, but you know, irresponsible lending was most certainly a key driver of the crisis, but most of that lending was backed by private capital, the GSEs actually maintained standards for their loan purchases that would have excluded many of the toxic loans that were so problematic. It was, you know, an instance here where the bad money was crowding out the good money. And without the standards that Fannie and Freddie did have, I don't know how much farther these bad products, these toxic products, unsustainable loans could have gone. You know, that said, going forward, the Dodd-Frank Act creates a framework for safer lending, and you know, that should provide some protections. But the system is always evolving, new ideas come up, and it is important to, you know, the government has an interest in making sure that lending is safe beyond just protecting the individual homeowner. We have, as a nation, we have an interest in helping people build wealth and in helping people be housed. And so as we go forward in reforming this system, it's important to remember that government has played an important role in that for a very long time now. Really, nobody here remembers the time before that.
Thank you.
Thank you.